Welcome to Outliers, an examination of some of your all-time favorite brands and the all-time greatest ads they've ever produced. In today's episode, we look at a brand with the highest creative hit rate we've seen so far in this series, the legendary consumer electronics brand Skullcandy. And as always, Outliers is brought to you by our incredible partners at Motion, the creative reporting tool that we use here at Common Thread Collective to help us produce more Outlier ads. Let's dive in to Skullcandy. All right, you know where we're going first. You can find me right in the middle of this scatter plot that breaks down every ad that Skullcandy's run. Now, important to know here, the Skullcandy is a largely retail-driven brand. And until they were acquired recently, back in the last couple of years, they haven't had a major focus on direct-to-consumer. That has changed a ton over the last few years, in part due to our partnership with them here at CTC. And so you'll notice that there were large periods of time where they weren't even running any meta ads at all, and that there's been a significant increase in the efforts to produce winning meta ads of late. And so what you see here, reminder on the bottom, is every Facebook ad that has been launched, the date that it was started, and then the amount of spend that that individual ad has produced. As always, we break down for you the total number of ads we're examining. In this case, 1,876 ads explored for an average spend per ad of $1,461. The median spend per ad of $384, modal spend at $584. The max, the top performer in this data set, $68,000. So smaller, and a lot of that is more of a reflection of the amount of total spend that Skullcandy has relative to the period of time in comparison to some of the other brands that we've seen. The standard deviation, and then what we call high performing, or ads that have spent one standard deviation above the mean. And now I mentioned in the intro that Skullcandy is the highest hit rate, or what we would call high performing percentage, of any brand that we've looked at so far, in that 6.36% of their ads perform one standard deviation above the mean. So 93 ads spent more than $5,733. This gives us that 6.36% rate. Now, this is important because it highlights what is often the reason behind the higher hit rate. Now, I'd like to say that we could take credit for that, and certainly the creative quality plays a role in the hit rate. But what is more likely to occur is that they are arbitraging the level of organic awareness that exists for this business relative to the volume of spend that they're currently at. And as brands sort of toggle between this relationship, where they are spending out beyond their organic awareness, they tend to have efficiency work in a similar fashion. So think of this as the larger your unaided awareness, the more people know about who you are, and the less spend you have, the more efficient that spend is. You are taking advantage of a functionally lower funnel activation. You are interacting with customers who already know who you are. They have some level of affinity towards your brand, and you are moving out the customer curve in the early days of the business towards that. So Skullcandy is benefiting from that at this stage of their growth. They are benefiting from years and years of being in market, driving large-scale awareness for over a decade and a half as a business at massive scale, and are now beginning to spend digital dollars to capture that pre-existing demand. So that's really important to understand, is that it's not surprising to me that for a large business like Skullcandy, this would be the case. Now, that said, the other thing to understand about a business like Skullcandy is that because so much of it is retail-driven, they have a mature and developed marketing calendar, that they drive story through product release and promotion and campaign, such that most of the ads that they're running are going to be in service of those efforts. They don't exist on the evergreen hamster wheel of just trying to beat last month's ads. They have stories to tell that map to retail rollouts and plans that are done years in advance in some cases. And this is the maturity that brands go through as they move into the later stages of growth, and where their distribution begins to be more focused on retail than online, is that the cadence changes, the sequence of storytelling changes, and the evergreen nature of the advertising begins to move towards more storytelling and marketing calendar driven. As an example, if we look today, right now, Skullcandy is getting set to release their new active line. You can see it being teased here in this new ad that was just, or this Instagram story that was just posted, where this campaign around their active product line has been in the works for a while, and it's going to drive the disproportionate amount of attention and awareness. The ads are going to be novel to the account. It's a new release. It's something that's never existed before. And this tends to be, more often than not, what drives the disproportionate success for Skullcandy and for brands like them. Now, you'll notice that as a business, they have an amazing set of beautiful photography, very diverse set of imagery, from studio imagery to lifestyle to content that they have worked really hard to go back to their roots and endear themselves into the action sports community. So you'll see a lot of the imagery around the skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding, etc. in that culture. But they do a great job of making it clear who their audience is and who they're after in their storytelling. So when we go to then look at what we expect these highest level dots to be, my anticipation and what I know about the business is that they relate to those ideas. They relate to promotion, product, storytelling. So let's take a look at these 3 dots, the highest outliers in the history of the brand. Number 1 is related to price. It's a promotional element related to an excess amount of inventory around one of their core SKUs, the Crusher Evo. They have the Crusher Evo 2. They've moved on to a second iteration of this product. And so for a limited time, they have a release of this SKU. So this is obviously a core lever that's going to drive disproportionate success. And I don't say this to diminish the overall brand efforts. This is a narrow band of how Skullcandy performs, but it is to remind us again the power of promotion and discount as a mover of the needle when it comes to creative success. But setting that aside, let's now take a deeper look at some of the things that win. This, again, following to the marketing calendar, licensing partner with the Ninja Turtles, a promotion to their holiday guide, meets a calendar in a way that this is the second highest spending ad ever. So what is there really to be gleaned? Price, promotion, Q4. Thanks, Taylor. That tells us a lot about what drives disproportionate success in the ad account. But again, so often what I'm doing in this series is to disassociate this idea that the way that the biggest ad performance return comes from is out of this idea that you solve some hook, click-through rate, and it's more that spending the money into the moments where the cultural power and product and price overlap is how you create disproportionate success. Okay, quick interruption to talk to you about motion. One of my favorite things about using motion is how quickly it gives me information to the kinds of questions I wonder about all the time when it comes to creative. So in this case, I'm looking at my Skullcandy instance inside of motion. I can very quickly and easily see my performance across different asset types. This is the thing that brands are incessantly curious about, is how are my static images doing versus my videos versus my DPA or DABA in any given period of time. So in this case, I can quickly pull up, create a comparison type report. I can look at how much spend on images versus videos versus DPA and DABA. I can see the ROAS, the AOV across all these spectrums and begin to provide those answers back to my customer right away. This is just one of many different reports that exist instantaneously inside of Motion App that our team uses to help bring creative insights to our customers to help produce more outliers. Now, the third biggest dot, so that was number 1, that was number 2. Let's go to number 3 on the list. Gives us a little more insight, I think, into a novel solution. Here you see a product that overlaps all of the things I care about in creating a revenue peak. Cultural moment, you have Pride Month. This is from June 14th of 2023. A product that is novelly developed to meet the customer in that, and a clear value proposition to a clear audience member. So you see, again, we got quality 3D rendering, beautiful colors, brand messaging, cool fonts, nice cut through the feed color scheme. All these things come together again to grab and create, which was the 3rd best ad of all time in the history of the business. But again, what we so often try to do with these creative outliers is to dissect, okay, let's look at the copy, let's look at the headline. And while that's like a very on-brand headline, there's a nice exit thumbnail. I don't know that there's anything about the design of this ad in particular that drives disproportionate success as much as it is the overload of those things. Cultural zeitgeist, product to meet the moment, clear and obvious audience delivered into it with success. And so this is something Skullcandy does over and over and over again to produce what is consistently winning ads. And more than even examining the outliers in this case, I think Skullcandy is worth examining as a mechanism for how they can produce a higher performing hit rate, how they more often than other people drive success. And it's because their advertising is a rope that gets pulled on by every channel in the organization, from organic social to email to the website, etc. They're stories that are told in advance and built in consistency with a narrative and a product that meets the moment to drive demand. And that is often the case in Outliers, is a learning that we are trying to unhook ourselves from the hamster wheel of iterative creative and figure out how we can win more often and what it looks like to win more often by uniting storytelling across the business.